All right. Hello. This is sort of mostly hello. This is kind of a video vlog, just kind of commenting on a few things that I'm a little late to be talking about that are going on in music right now. Uh, the Beatles now and then, the recent updated versions of the Red and Blue albums, and also I'm definitely late to be talking about this Rolling Stone magazine's 250 Greatest Guitarists. So I'll Yeah, with now and then, I'll quickly comment that before hearing about it and seeing like all the hype for it, um, beforehand, I was not too excited about it. I'm a huge Beatles fan, by the way. I'm gonna just today I was reflecting on I'm kind of wishing I had told this story at my dad's funeral a couple of months ago, but when I was about 5, and when he would go swimming at the YMCA, and I would be in the nursery while he would like do his swimming. He would then come in to pick me up, and we passed a group of people doing aerobics, and the tune that they happened to be doing their aerobics to happened to be Obla di Obla Da. Um, and or it wasn't the original version. It was a cover version of it, but my dad then went home, played the original version for me, and then said, "These are the guys who did it." Opened up the fold of the White Album and said, "That's John, that's Paul, that's George, that's Ringo." Um, and I then just became a huge Beatles fan, and I think it was a year or two later, after having played around with the toy guitar for a while, having my toy guitar that I always played it, I started taking guitar lessons. And I mean, look at my music channel. Look at my channel. This is a music channel, hypothetically. I haven't really been doing much on it, but yeah, yeah, anyway, so basically when I was a kid I was just absolutely obsessed with the Beatles. The Beatles are my favorite band. When I saw the hype for Now and Then, at first, and some of this might just be the attitude I've overall developed, was at first I was like, "Ooh, this seems to be a cash grab." That was my attitude when seeing the hype for it. But then it's like, it I listened to it and it's like, yeah, I think a lot of it was Paul McCartney just wanted to leave everything finished. He had been talking about finishing the song. Um, Today what I was thinking about was how it kind of is a major part of Beatles history and the Beatles continuing to innovate. Like using this new high-tech equipment to do this sort of stuff, and also the remix album kind of using this some of this new technology to be able to do more like separating into like really do some big things. That's something that's been part of the remix process. And today I finally decided to give these updated versions of the Red and Blue albums a listen. I'm thinking about I was talking about cash grabs. I mean, it was Alan Klein who put together the original albums, and I mean, we all know who Alan Klein is and he was all about. So I mean, kind of hypocritical of me to say that. Just today I was listening to an interview John Lennon did, where he commented that when he saw the the Red and Blue albums coming out, he was like, "Oh, they're just putting the original tracks on," and then he was like, "Oh, they remixed it," and he wasn't as at the time. John Lennon wasn't as fond of those remixes. I have no idea what he would think. I'm something I was thinking of and reflecting on about like doing these remixes. It's It's kind of like I'm gonna go back to when I was in college and we were learning about Baroque music. Usually, when you see an organist performing, they're performing it using the specific pitches that we now understand today as like A, B, C, D, and all the sharps and flats. And it was we hear this music that was written this way. We think of the pitches that we now know as those notes. The exact pitches during the Baroque period could have been different, and we were listening to someone who had tried to like recreate an organ from that time, and it sounded really out of tune. When we were listening in that class, it was like, what are we listening to? This is out of tune. This is horrendous. And it's because our ears have gotten so accustomed to exact pitches. So I think an analogy I can think of is if an organist it's like an organist remixing stuff is potentially like an organist performing on a modern day on an organ tuned to what we know of as the pitches today, not tuned to how people thought in the Baroque period. Or another analogy would be like how people like do all this work to like clean up all the grains and clean everything up when with movies. All these sort of remasterings of movies. Um, but also I think it would still be a good idea to continue having releases of the original mono mixes. Um, so that yeah, and because something I was thinking about, and this is a little off topic, is that like I've noticed a lot of people at their jobs like put a single earbud in to do their work. One of the reasons I don't like in my secret identity jobs, one of the reasons that I usually don't work with a that I usually don't work with headphones, or in places where I can have only one. The reason that I a few years ago I had a product manufacturing job where there was a period where we could have one earbud in. But I never did because it's like a lot of music's in stereo, and I would I need to hear both sides. So I think that's another good reason to like re-release stuff, have mono mixes, um, or have some sort of feature. And I think some earbuds possibly do. Anyway, yeah, I thought Now and Then was a fairly good song. Um, it was when I showed it to my mom, she started crying. Um, yeah, the thing about that, and also going back to the Red and Blue albums, I'll say that I had I still have really mixed feelings about adding all these additional tracks because it's like the more stuff you put onto a compilation, it's complicated. My opinions are complicated. It's like you can't put you can't fit the Beatles' entire career onto 4 discs. It's yeah, it's their career is it's you can't really squeeze. Yeah, it's like it's maybe trying to squeeze more onto their it's kind of maybe trying to squeeze as much into like a limited amount of space as possible. And if you could fit their entire careers into 4 discs, um, what would there wouldn't be that much to say. It's like their careers are so much bigger than that. Um, and so it's but also it's like some of the additions I thought, yeah, they're pretty good ideas. And I think yeah, one of the things that I'm really excited about with this technology, it's like I think it's really cool seeing like the Beatles continuing to be the innovators and also seeing Peter Jackson getting this heavy involvement in Beatles history. I'm not sure if he would ever imagined being able to be part of that. I think that is pretty cool. Seeing this, um, And some things I'm really looking forward to about some of this new technology development is not as much like further remixing the Beatles, but one of the things that came to mind for me is, ooh, someone's probably going to do this with a lot of the old blues legends like Charlie Patton and Robert Johnson. Like basically, like Robert Johnson had there's like the Centennial Collection. It's like basically remove the buzzing. But yeah, so that would be kind of a cool thing to see. And it possibly has already happened. Um, but I think kind of a really great possibility of being able to like really find really old recordings and really be able to like stuff that was like recorded onto the wax cylinders, like the really old, like the stuff into the cone rather than the technological stuff, the really old recordings, um, from like the beginning of the 20th century. I think having this new technology to be able to possibly really clean up and remaster and do stuff with those recordings is something that's probably more exciting for me. Um, and yeah, okay, I said I was also going to comment on the 250 greatest guitarists according to Rolling Stone magazine. I've seen a lot of guitarists really upset and really pissed at that list. It's like when I first saw it, what I said was, for one of these lists put together by a mainstream magazine, I thought it was fairly decent. Um, I can't recall all the details I gave, but another thing I said was all these like this definitive 100, definitive top 10, definitive 200, all these sort of lists, they're never, everyone's going to have disagreements with those sort of lists. None of them are perfect. You can't take it as a truly definitive thing. It's, um, everyone's going to have their problems with it. I I definitely I thought for something put together by a mainstream magazine, some of it might have been that I just had lower expectations. But yeah, if there's a list that I feel is potentially truly horrendous, it would be you might want to check out Guitar World magazine's 100 greatest guitar albums from like that was a list put together like 15, 16 years ago. Um I remember getting that magazine issue and taking it to my guitar teacher, and both of us just, especially my guitar teacher, just ranting about just how disgusted he was by that list. That list was basically all rock. There was quite a bit that didn't really showcase much guitar playing. Yeah, one of the things I remember was he was glad to see Frank Zappa on, but then I said, but yeah, when talking about guitar albums, um, I would put "Shut Up and Play Your Guitar" rather than strictly commercial of, of Frank Zappa's albums. And yeah, my guitar teacher was just really upset to see "Appetite for Destruction" being number two. I mean, in my opinion, it's a great rock album, but with like, yeah, guitarists like Steve Vai and Jeff Beck and John McLaughlin and um yeah, oh yeah, John McLaughlin wasn't even on that list from Guitar World magazine. So I'm gonna say Rolling Stone's 250 greatest guitarists. I feel that to have been a better list than what I saw from Guitar World magazine all those years ago. But yeah, all these lists, you can't take them too seriously. I'm gonna say it's really nice to see like individuals giving their top 10, their top 20, their top 100. I think it's really cool seeing individuals giving like those, but that's a case where it's very much a fully subjective thing. I'm thinking back towards years ago, the second season of American Idol. Um, One of the singers who seemed to be like the most popular, who seemed to be a judge's favorite, um, who in the end ended up winning the full competition. 1 week on that show, he was one of the bottom two, and we saw the judges all just being shocked. And it's like there was even a camera shot of Simon Cowell looking to the other judges, going, and seeing Ruben Studdard specifically being one of the bottom two, and Randy Jackson was like, "This ain't right." Paula Abdul was like, "You should both be laughing hysterically because you've done a great job." And then Simon Cowell said, and the audience booed him over it, but I'm gonna say technically I'm gonna agree with this statement. I think it was that people were used to booing him. So he said, I mean, I said what I said yesterday, but he said something like, but we have to accept that this is what the fans voted for, and that's what the people want. It's And the audience booed him, and he was like, seriously, it's the music industry. It's subjective. Yeah, music is totally subjective. So that's kind of another thing is that yeah, but yeah, anyway, I'm gonna say you can give a look at Rolling Stone's 250 Greatest Guitarists, and some of the other people vlogging about it and who've talked about it, talking about like the missing guitarists, talked about what they agreed with, what they disagreed with. You can look at that list, look at people's opinions on it. And then the Beatles now and then, kind of a good final moment of the Beatles. And then maybe check out the Red and Blue albums, the updated versions. Everyone's gonna have different opinions. Yeah, I mean, some things I forgot to mention about those. Yeah, I'm gonna say a compilation album that I was thinking about is one of Beatles compilations. The nice thing about one of all the Beatles compilations is that's something where they kind of have sort of there's a criteria that gives sort of an objective of what songs you can put and not put on. Sort of a narrowed down objective, and that was all the songs that were number one singles. Um, and I think that made for a pretty cool album, a pretty cool compilation. Yeah, the Beatles' career can't be compressed into a few discs. They had a pretty big, wild, fabulous career. Um, but yeah, and yeah, now and then, check it out, figure out your opinions. Oh yeah, one last thing I'm gonna say about the updates of the Red and Blue albums, is that it goes through like 1962 to 1970, um, and has The Long and Winding Road, and then all these years later includes Now and Then. Something that I think is a major part of Beatles history that I think would have been nice to have been included would have been to have either Free as a Bird or Real Love. Um, Real Love's my personal preference of the two, but Free as a Bird was probably the one that was really important. Um, yeah. Something else I was thinking of regarding Now and Then was potentially like seeing like a re-release of the Beatles anthology documentary series, and then have like Freeze a Bird, Real Love, and Now and Then each kind of at the end. Because when the Beatles anthology documentary series was originally aired on TV, and my parents taped it, I was 5, and I still have the tapes. I'd watch them on a regular basis, and I was a little kid, so I'd still watch the commercials, and so I've kept the tapes, a lot of it for the commercials. But anyway, and the hope the later home extended home media releases did make some minor changes here and there that I won't get into detail here about. But anyway, it was originally the original televised Beatles anthology was 3 episodes, and when they were released on home video and DVD, um, anthology one was expanded to anthology one, two, and three. Then anthology two was expanded to four, five, six, and the beginning of seven. Um, and on the night anthology one was aired, um, Freeze a Bird premiered at the end. And that little portion where they did Freeze a Bird, that's been moved to the very end of anthology 8 of the VHS and DVD releases. And at the end of the televised anthology 2, they premiered Real Love. And for anthology 3, nothing new. It would have been cool to have had Now and Then as like all 3 nights having a new Beatles song. But anyway, also summarizing what was anthology 3, that was basically all of anthology 8 minus Free as a Bird and most of anthology 7. And I thought something that I think would be cool would be to like, this is something you could do at home if you have the DVDs and if you have YouTube on your TV, is watch anthologies 1, 2, and 3, and then watch Free as a Bird afterwards, and then 4, 5, and 6. Real Love after that, and then 7 and 8, and end with Now and Then. I don't know. I think but anyway, I'm really going all over the place. Not sure if I said this, but I'm getting rambly, but yeah, something I think would have possibly been a good idea for the Red and Blue albums would have been to include Freeze a Bird on it, because that was also an important part of Beatles history, and that's the reason that Now and Then was even possible to do. Those sessions, if they had never done those sessions and tried working on Now and Then at that time, they would have not been able to have all 4 of them for Now and Then Now, because George would have not had any involvement. I mean, the original Beatles release, the original Love Me Do, they had Andy White playing on it, and there were a couple of recordings they did before that where Pete Best was the drummer. And I mean, the Ballad of John and Yoko, that was only Paul and John. And it's like, I think on Let It Be, I think I Me Mine was Paul, George, and Ringo, and I think John had left the band before that recording session, but they were just kind of finishing the album up for release. I don't know. They're so it's, I mean, hypothetically, something could still technically really be released under the Beatles logo, but some new stuff from Paul and Ringo, but that would also be of poor taste. I think they themselves said that it needs to involve all 4 of them. And I think Now and Then is a good final bow. And yeah, but overall, anyway, it's music, it's subjective. Everyone has different opinions. Everyone's entitled to different opinions. It's music. Yeah.